gigantic. There is no comparison that we can make to illustrate its enormity. Even the energy within 1 cubic centimetre of space is as close to infinity as ever could be imagined. To attempt to compare it, for example, with the tremendous energies released by atomic bombs, even with millions of atomic bombs, still fails to give us any sense of its magnitude. And this is for every cubic centimetre of space, throughout all of space. This is the seething energetic ocean within which we live, the energy field of which we are part, the energy field that is us in every sense that you can imagine. What I will explain to you as I take you on this video journey of discovery will, I hope, help you to understand why it is, if we are to enter the new era with best preparation, we must close the books on Newtonian medicine. Strange as it may seem, even though we are surrounded by such enormous scalar energy, it is impossible to observe it or measure it directly with present-day instruments. This is simply because we are totally immersed within it. However, there is some hope for getting acquainted with this elusive scalar energy, because it announces its existence through patterns and phenomena that are observable. Just as on our little boat on the ocean, we manage to get a clue about the nature of the ocean when a breeze builds to a storm and causes waves to crash over our boat. We may not be able to deduce much hard information about the full extent of the ocean's energy from what we observe, but in no uncertain terms, we become very aware that it is enormous, because of the pummeling we get from the crashing waves. On quieter days we might take time out to study the waves and the patterns that they make as they interact with our little boat. And from our research we might even start to engineer ways to harness them for our benefit. Scalar energy is composed of what we call stationary waves, like the waves you set up on a rope with one fixed end, when you flap the other end up and down. It is the kind of wave that is created on a violin string, as the bow causes it to vibrate. As you can imagine, the waves are running up and down the string, interfering with each other in such a way that they create a stationary buzzing pattern, a musical note. This is exactly how a scalar wave looks. It obviously contains energy, but it is going nowhere. So now I will explain how this type of wave, scalar waves, interact with each other to create what we call particles or matter. Of course, an atom does not look quite like the one you met in your school textbooks. Say goodbye to the old particle atom and say hello to the new wave-only version. I should point out that we do not do particles anymore. Not even the particles as in the wave-particle duality theory. No, there are no particles, only waves. Waves and more waves. The one confusion that I suspect could arise is caused by the fact that we have run out of new words to describe wave structures that appear to us as though they are particles. So what we do is to continue to use the word particle when referring to these wave structures. So when I mention particle, think the end points of waves where their directions are reversed. We therefore can define a particle as being the stationary wave energy structure that results when we get forward and time reversed waves that become locked in resonance with each other. You could therefore say that the rope that you were flapping connects two particles. One particle is at your hand, and the other particle the point where the rope ties to the wall. These two particles are locked together in resonance between two identical waves that are going in opposite directions, scalar energy waves. This illustrates the locked resonance structure that is an electron. The center point oscillates up and down. In other words, it oscillates between positive and negative, showing how the creation of an electron must be accompanied by its antiparticle, the positron. When several electrons create phase-locked resonance with each other, we have a synchronously resonating structure that forms an even bigger particle. This is the basis of all matter in the universe. When you reflect on us as energy beings, you can readily see how this might be so from this wave resonance simulation between electrons. Just try imagining zillions of waves being resonance locked to each other. That is our body. And you can imagine that the degree to which we maintain maximum phase-locked resonance between all of these wave particles is the degree to which we maintain perfect health and awareness. Not only are we the physical body that we see and feel, but you can now readily understand how it is that we extend into the space surrounding our physical bodies, with resonance locking taking place with other scalar waves from within the surrounding ether, with weaker degrees of resonance locking as distance from our physical body increases. This is the nature of our auras. You must realize that all of space is a resonating mist of phase-locked particles. Nowhere is there emptiness, not even in the farthest reaches of outer space. It is through this resonance-locked wave structure that all energy flows in the universe. When we contemplate how hard some materials can be, diamonds for example, we can perhaps get an inkling of the enormous energy that is within the scalar waves that lock together the carbon atoms in phased resonance within it. In the words of Marcel Proust, The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. So let's look with new eyes at the many clues and patterns produced by the universal scalar energy. First, let's remind ourselves again how scalar waves appear on computer simulation. Now here is a pattern created by a vibrating flat plate that is covered with a sprinkling of sand. See how the sand has moved itself to make a pattern that shows the stationary scalar waves. This also applies to water. Here is a water drop being vibrated. Again, it shows the scalar wave patterns. Interesting to note the hexagon structure that is created by the resonance within this water drop. And here are microscope images of different snowflake crystals. And see how they are always hexagonal in shape. On a much larger scale, here is a photograph of the North Pole of Saturn. We can see the aurora, just as we see at the North Pole and South Pole of Earth. But see its hexagonal shape traced out by the clouds, that in this photograph are shown in red, and marked here by the green overlay. So from these examples we get confirmation that the kind of vibrational energy that affects the shape of snowflakes also acts across space. The flower of life symbol, composed of multiple evenly spaced overlapping circles, is considered sacred among many cultures and is viewed as a symbol of sacred geometry. It also has a hexagonal shape. This is an atomic force microscope image of the surface of a silicon crystal. You can see the silicon atoms locked together in a scalar wave pattern. This seashell shows a pattern that obviously is reflecting a scalar wave pattern. The spiral shape is also associated with scalar energy, but we will discuss that in more detail later. I would like to quote these words from Albert Einstein. He who can no longer pause to wonder and stand wrapped in awe is as good as dead. His eyes are closed. Again, to remind you of our starting to be familiar computer simulated phase-locked scalar wave patterns, look in particular at the space between the two peaks, the kind of line pattern. Clouds that we see from this aircraft window look amazingly similar. And these ones looked at from below also display a similar scalar wave pattern. Now, this cloud that the meteorologists call a lenticular cloud is actually formed by a particularly high scalar energy associated with this mountain. This is Mount Fuji in Japan. Lenticular clouds are stationary lens-shaped clouds that form over particular mountains and do not move with the wind.